Okay, so we just finished with the radius, and now we're going to dive into the ulna. And in similar fashion, we have a proximal and distal end with landmarks associated to both. And also we need to determine whether or not this is a left or a right ulna. So first thing you can probably already appreciate is that both ends look very dissimilar. Namely, the proximal end here has grooves for the radius and the humerus, whereas the distal end doesn't, and it's much smaller. It's only comprised of two landmarks you need to know. Lucky for you, it's the head of the ulna, so it's right here, and then the styloid process of the ulna. Now, the styloid process of the ulna will point medially, whereas the styloid process of the radius points laterally. So make sure to keep that in mind. Okay, so now we're moving back, and I'm actually going to spin the bone here into an anterior view. And we can see the trochlear notch. This is also known as the semilunar notch, where the trochlea of the humerus will articulate to form the elbow joint. We have the coronoid process, which is what's poking out here. A bit hard to see, but if I turn it, you can see it a bit better. Do not confuse this with the conoid tubercle or anything. It is the coronoid process. And if we move slightly more distal, we see the tuberosity of the ulna right here. So we know that the ulna is a medial lying bone in the forearm. So if we look at it from a lateral view, it would make sense that we see where the head of the radius articulates, namely with the radial notch of the ulna here. Okay. And then lastly, we have the olecranon process, which is this entire part of the bone and is kind of just a fancy word for elbow. And then, sorry, just one more thing I want to point out is as we run down the lateral surface of the bone, we see this interosseous border, which we know will articulate with the radius via the interosseous membrane. So knowing all this, well, actually just knowing that the radius will articulate here and the ulna is a medial lying bone, there's only one way this would work in the body, and that's actually going to be, I don't know how to position this on my camera better, but this will actually be as a right ulna, because in anatomical position the radial notch must be pointing laterally. And if we put this, and if you imagine it on your left arm as you're sitting in anatomical position, that doesn't work. Whereas the only arm it works on is our right. And also you can notice that the styloid process points medially, which would only occur in the right arm.